We further strengthened our deployment, also initiated some measure points, set a very clear and dynamic message
and the
side.
likes of David
This
Headley.
is the EPS
What
adventure.
followed was a careful scrutiny
Some of the airfield with
of
dumps
each
or
of these
repeated
sinister
attacks,
locations,
waves from the air.
their layout, configuration, even the type of
Pakistan
construction
Army
in each structure,
has been
and the
noted
terrain
across
sustained around these.
the P5
This was with an obvious
14%
intent to
artillery,
produce and
small arms,
identify
sliding,
the exact vector
reported
that was required
across
for their
waves from the air.
neutralization, as also the eyes in the sky
Pakistan Army
that we would send up
has
to
reported
ensure
across
that we brought back evidence
the P5
that we had indeed
14%
targeted what we
artillery,
set out to.
small arms, sliding,
Precise images of these engagements on that fateful and historical night
The other
have
side
already been showcased
probably also
during the
connected
first
with
press statement on
speedy
the 7th of May
sites well now
that was helmed
feedback
by our Foreign Secretary.
force.
I have no doubt in my mind that we achieved total surprise,
Of these
and
significant
those strikes
game-changing
across
strengths. I will gather
9
the
terror
request.
hubs
I
left
thank
more than 100 terrorists killed,
the
including
director
high-value targets
operations.
such as Yusuf
Tell
Azhar,
us how
Abdul Malik
Sudhir
Rauf,
telling
and
able to
Mudassir
observe
Ahmed
Arabian Sea
that were involved in the
under
hijack
pressure
of IC-814 and the Pulwama blast. The line of control was also violated soon after by Pakistan, and the erratic and rattled response of our enemy was apparent from the number of civilians, inhabited villages, and religious sites such as Gurudwaras that were unfortunately hit by them, leading to a sad loss of lives. The Indian Air Force played a major part in these strikes by engaging some of these camps, and the Indian Navy provided wherewithal in terms of precision munitions. The Indian Air Force obviously had their assets up in the sky, and I will here request Air Marshal Bharti, the Director General of Air Operations, to detail for you the methodology that the men in blue adopted to successfully manifest this mission.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a difficult time that we have to come here like this and brief you. We could have done without this, but we had no choice. As the DGMO has detailed, the event was precipitated by the Dust Riding Act at Pahalgam. The sequence of events have already been detailed. We carefully selected the targets, and out of the 9 selected targets, the target that were given to the Indian Air Force were the notorious training camps Bhavatpur and Muridke. These moved further from the international boundary. Through critical target system analysis, we analyzed what was to be done to annihilate these targets and plan to engage these targets with precision air-to-surface guided munition so as to avoid collateral damage. The modalities of planning process I will not go through at this instant. However, what I would like to show you is the results that we achieved through our targeted airstrikes. Do I have the second slide, please? Yeah, change, please. Okay. This is what the terror infra Muridke looks like.
Every system
If you see, north is
it was only a measure
and
response. It's still
national boundary lies.
as
Could I have the next
response
slide, please?
was adequate
only at military installations, avoiding civilian and collateral damage. Orientating. Now I'd like to show you some of
Just go back
the
to one
effects
slide.
that have been achieved as a result of our air operation.
Please have a look at this red building. The series of buildings out here. And this empty ground. If you relate, the empty ground is here, and you see this is the first weapon that is impacting. This is the impact point number 1 on Muridke training camp with our precision guided weapon on early morning 7. Next, please.
And after this strike,
Keep your eyes glued.
this is
The
what is
second
happening.
weapon coming in,
One.
and
Next
second
slide, please.
impact on the selected target point.
The junior defense radar
Slide, please.
is taken out. This is the radar site.
Third
These
weapon.
are
Third
photographs. Once again, on a dark,
continue.
not very clear. But what we see very clearly is
Fourth
the
weapon.
after
Fourth
effect
impact.
of the
So these,
radar
through these
that has
targeted and precision
completely
targeting,
decapitated. It's like
we
this.
addressed the target at
Alpha,
Muridke, which was
that
the
defense
training
radar.
infrastructure.
See this complex?
Can you hear me? All right.
See how it looked
Okay, I'll
before?
come closer to the mic.
You know,
Now we go to the next target, which is the Bhavalpur training
after
camp.
really close.
Next slide, please.
Next.
Okay, just wait. So
And
the
what you said was
effect,
after.
if you see,
Remember, this is one of the important airfields. Wherein
impact
they have
point.
a lot of assets,
I can
F-16s,
point out,
other
this is
assets.
the impact
They
point.
keep getting
The
training institutes.
ammunition has gone through the roof and it has created a blast
We have
inside. The
stuck
photographs
this
of which
airfield.
you would have,
It is
all,
now
all of you would have
zooming
seen.
here. Then one impact point here on the runway.
The
Separate
red building, after that, there was
precision
this
weapon on the runway.
double-story
See,
building. It has been completely
this-
decimated
Those
by
are
a precision
repairing
targeting.
going on.
Next,
Same
please.
here. Next.
The target
Yeah,
system, which was in the north, a series of
This is the
buildings.
area we'll start.
I'll show you how it looked next.
Strike out here.
Completely
All
destroyed
mountains here.
by our
So this is how it
precision
looked before.
targeting.
And same.
Next,
You see a big breakdown.
now coming to
breakdown
Bhavalpur,
here.
this is the
And
target
this
complex
complex
that we are dealing with, a
On the
fairly
strike.
large target
Yes.
complex. So we had to carefully choose the points that we needed to address, which
Saklala
were
airfield.
high value and
Here,
which
major
would meet
airfields.
our stated
Over there,
objectives
lost assets
of
out here.
eliminating the.
This was the choosing
Terror.
complex that we need.
I would like to draw your
Intended
attention to this
strike.
red canopy,
But
and
their
in relation to
message.
that, I
Next
would
slide, please.
cover the targets. One target
This
system
is how it
is a
looked
series
before.
of buildings here,
And
other one
this is
here,
how it looked
and
after
other
our
one
last strike.
out here. Next slide, please.
Next.
This is
Sakar,
how it looked before,
which was the radar site.
and this is
Sakar,
how the building looked after the
this is the radar site.
impact of the weapon.
And
And
after
orientation
it
in
was
relation
struck,
to this red canopy,
This is
you can
the
see here.
one
Next, please.
completely rotten. Next, please.
Before
Aircraft shutdown. This is how it looked
and after,
before the strike. And this is how it looked after
the
the
roof
strike.
completely
The
collapsed.
next
Next,
of the buildings are completely rotten. Next.
this is the target system. Next,
Bellary airfield.
precision
does kind of-
targeting,
This is how it looked
and we've
before.
achieved our objectives here.
This is
Next.
what-
All right. So that was what we did on the 7th. Our objective was to address these two enemy,
before.
these two
Now this
terrorist
is
camps,
how it looked.
and that we
Still
did
strike.
with precision.
Next.
And thereafter, we maintained a
Jacob Baba.
robust air defense posture, because remember,
Aircraft fighter.
our objective was to target the terrorists and
So
terrorist
I'm trying to
infrastructure,
convey here
not
is judgment
any other infrastructure, not the
start with
Pakistani
our
military,
fight
not the
was
Pakistani,
neither
any
with the
other
Pakistan
infrastructure. So that
military
is what we have
or the
maintained
NPS.
on the
They are
7th
not
of.
us. Our fight was with the
However, what we
terrorists.
saw
Neutralize the terrorists.
in the
That
evening
is
of
very
7th of
neutralized.
May,
And
we
thereafter,
were saturated
we
with
maintained the
a raid of
over. We were
Pakistani
relentlessly
unmanned aerial
pounded by
vehicles
waves after waves,
and
night after
small
night,
drones.
by his UCAVs
And these
by
came
his
in
drones
waves
and by his
in our
unmanned
civilian areas,
other
or our
unmanned
military
aerial
installations,
systems. and left us with no jobs. All of them were successfully intercepted. Few of them did manage to land. However, there was not much damage that they did. And we have our robust counter US hard kill and soft kill systems, which did their job. However, the difference here was that we had targeted the terrorists. The adversary now has targeted our civilians and the military infrastructure. So it had to be responded to. So in a quick and calibrated response, that very night, we struck their radar installations at Lahore and close to Gujranwala, the LYT installation.
You may be aware
to indicate to him that we are ready.
Find tactics and
yes,
procedures
we do not want to escalate
during multiple weapon firings in the Arabian Sea within 96 hours. The terrorist attack.
Thank you.
Aim was to validate or armament
Thank you, Bharti.
and platform readiness.
Ladies and gentlemen, he
Deliver various orders,
operations
selected
not only on the
targets,
night of 6th
precisely.
and 7th of May, when operations
Thereafter,
commenced,
Our forces
but also on
remained
the subsequent
over
night,
deployed
being
in other
well aware
Arabian Sea
and
in
familiar
a decisive
with the
and
congenital
deterrent booster
and impulsive nature
readiness
of our
and
adversary,
capacity.
and even
Strike,
though
select
we
targets
did attempt to
at
reach
sea
out and communicate
and on land,
our compulsions to
including
strike
Karachi,
the heart of terror
at time
to my counterpart in the
For
immediate
deployment
wake of
of
Operation
Netherlands.
Sindoor. The request was
Pakistani
brusquely
naval techniques
turned down with an
Yes.
intimation that a severe response was inevitable and in the offing.
Maritime marine business, strong declaration hospitality of men, execution, and women of Pakistani units. In effect, we continue to have light space transparency, using maritime domain within this unit. As you are aware, our response has been renewed, complete, non-disciplinary, and responsible. For a key calibrated approach, consider all options, including the ability of immediate action from and its as part of this escalation control mechanism, the application of force by the Navy and in synchronized manner in coordination with Army and Air Forces, highlight the need for military services working close extraction, integrated and its along with the kinetic as part of vice destination and Indian Air Force overwhelming operational pitch Indian Naval and Sea constituted policy and Pakistan's virtual enemy ceasefire destiny.
Starting right from Srinagar, going down right up to Nalia. It was a mass raid in waves, and it was relentless. However, we were prepared, and our air defense preparedness ensured that there is no damage on ground or to any of the intended targets that the enemy might have planned for. The difference between 7th night and 8th night was that on 7th night, he sent in his Jiha class of UAVs. However, these UAVs can go some distance, they are armed. However, on the 8th, less numbers of armed UCAVs were there or UAVs were there, and more numbers of quadcopters, maybe for surveillance or just for harassment of civilians. This continued till midnight. Our air defense preparedness ensured that there was no damage on the ground, either to the military installations or to the civilians. However, the enemy had yet again shown that he wanted to up the ante and he wanted a fight, and we were up to the task. In a measured and calibrated response, we once again targeted his military installations, which included his SAM sites at Malirkant. This also included his surveillance radar sites at Lahore and close to Gujranwala. These were suitably addressed, and thereafter his drone attacks continued even till morning, and during the daytime there was some respite. Here I would like to bring out another aspect. What we found was that while the drone attacks were being launched somewhere close to Lahore, enemy had allowed his civilian aircraft to also continue to fly out of Lahore. Not only his own aircraft, but international passenger aircraft, which is quite insensitive, and we had to exercise extreme caution, even at the cost of some tactical disadvantage, to ensure that there is no damage to any of the civilians. This will also come out in our during the day.
On land, we also conducted certain measures such as deployment of air defense and electronic warfare assets to establish an integrated grid with the Indian Air Force, and I have seen and heard some of you wax eloquent about the benefits of such an architecture when it comes to negating and combating air intrusion. We also carried out deployment to include movement of our forces in the land, sea, and air domains. The night of the 9th and the 10th of May saw similar intrusions by drones and aircraft, and this time there was a concerted effort to target airfields and some very, very important logistic installations, albeit yet again unsuccessful and denied gallantly and efficiently, I must say, by the integrated Indian Air Force and Indian Army Air Defense. We further strengthened our deployment and also initiated some pressure points to send a very clear and unambiguous message to the other side to desist from any misadventures on land. Some of the airfields and dumps saw repeated attacks in waves from the air. All the Pakistan Army has reported to have lost approximately 35 to 40 personnel in artillery and small arms firing on the line of control between the 7th and the 10th of May. What the other side had probably also not reckoned with was the speedy and precise turnaround and hit back by the Indian Air Force. And I will yet again ask Air Marshal Bharti to speak about these significant and game-changing strikes. I will thereafter request Vice Admiral Pramod, my colleague and Director General of Naval Operations, to tell us about some very telling naval maneuvers in the Arabian Sea that exerted pressure on the night of 9th and 10th of May.
Commencing about 2000 hours, that is 8 p.m. local time, on 8th of May, several Pakistani unmanned aerial systems, drones, combat vehicles attacked multiple IF bases. These included Jammu, Udhampur, Pathankot, Amritsar, Bhatinda, Nal, Dalhousie, Thois, Jaisalmer, Uttarlai, Falodi, Nalia. These were almost simultaneous and they came in waves. All our AD guns and other systems were waiting for them. All these waves were neutralized by our trained crew using the air defense systems that they have. And also, some of them were neutralized using our legacy systems like Pechoras and IF Summer, which we have recently acquired. And some were neutralized by the Garud snipers. There was no damage on ground from these incursions and these mass raids, if I could call them, from the Pakistani side. However, following these relentless attacks on our air bases, on our forward positions, and on our civilian targets, this was time to convey some message to our adversary. And therefore, a decision was taken to strike where it would hurt. And towards that, in a swift, coordinated, calibrated attack, we struck his air bases, command centers, military infrastructure, air defense systems across the entire Western Front. The bases we struck include Chaklala, Rafiki, and mind you, Chaklala is Islamabad. Rahim Khan, Sucker, sending a clear message that aggression will not be tolerated. This was followed by strikes at Sargodha, Bholari, Jacobabad. We also struck the C2 centers at Murid, the UAE complex at Murid, Rafiki, radar at Chunia, which I will show you, Rahim Khan airfield, and the unmanned combat aerial vehicle hangar at Sucker. I would like to reiterate here that we have the capability to target every system at these bases and more. However, it was only a measured response to instill good wisdom to our adversary to refrain from further escalation. IF response was directed only at military installations, avoiding civilian and collateral damage. I would now like to show you some of the effects that have been achieved as a result of our air operation. Here is this is a radar mounted. Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you. And after the strike, this is what has happened. This radar has been taken out, completely burnt. Next slide, please. The Chunia air defense radar, which was taken out on 7th and 8th. This is the radar site. A blown up photograph, once again, on a tower. Not very clear, but what you see very clearly is the after effect after we have struck. The radar head has been completely decapitated. Next slide, please. Arifwala air defense radar. In this complex, you see how it looked before, blown up image, and after really blown up. Next. Now coming to Sargodha airfield. Remember, this is one of their important airfields wherein they have a lot of assets, F-16s, other assets which they keep getting, training institutes. And we have stuck this airfield. It is not, if you zoom in here, then one impact point here on the runway and second impact point of our weapon, precision weapon on the runway. And if you see, this blown up, repairing going on. Same here. Next. Rahim Khan. This is the area we have struck. A deep strike out here and one complex here. So this is how it looked before, and same. You see a big crater, another crater here, and this complex after strike neutralized. Next. Chaklala Airfield, Noor Khan, once again a major air base. A lot of their logistic assets out here. This was the chosen complex that we intended to strike and convey a message. Next slide, please. This is how it looked before, and this is how it looked after our strike. Next. Sakkar. We chose the radar site at Sakkar. This is the radar site. And after it was struck, this is the aftermath, completely burnt out. Next, please. Aircraft shelter. This is how it looked before the strike, and this is how it looked after the strike. The roof of the buildings completely caved in and burnt.